they didn't expect to be paid as well as the CEO. They knew there was a difference, right? And Herman Miller and all the service masters and so on. They didn't expect to be buddy-buddy. Although there were some incredible stories at Lincoln, they only had one cafeteria where everyone ate. And so you could see the CEO and chairman at lunch. Drucker did believe that high rewards ought to go to people who innovate, because he wanted to foster innovation. There are numerous examples of a functioning society not operating in free markets without obscene kind of ratios. All right. Now, the functioning society depends on autonomous, responsible, performing individuals. The responsible society requires people who are autonomous, responsible, and performing. That's where MBO came from. MBO didn't come from business practice. It came from a desire to achieve a functioning society by achieving alignment between the interests of the individual and the interests of the organization. Okay? And so MBO with self-control is the managerial philosophy Drucker proposes for resolving this tension between individual's desire for freedom and the authority the individual has to yield when he or she works for an organization. Isn't that so? We must yield our own autonomy as a condition of employment and citizenship. So, how does this philosophy work? MBO is bandied about, and it's attributed to Drucker, but very, very few people understand where it comes from. It comes from his desire to align the interests of the individual with the interest of the organization and with the interest of the nation in such a way that the individual maintains a certain degree, a high degree of freedom while operating within the rules. That's MBO and self-control. Now, this is how powerful MBO is. Many of the attributes of a functioning society may get attained by using MBO in society's organizations. Realizing individual freedom in the institutions requires responsibility at every level. So, if it's properly designed, it develops both responsibility and freedom. One doesn't come with the other. See, that's what's wrong with the entitlement culture. You owe me. Okay? There's a lack of responsibility implied. Now, the passage in the Daily Drucker on 26 November talks about the heart of MBO. And the heart is in the communications area. The epigraph, Drucker is known for his one-liners that encapsulate a whole body of thought. These are epigraphs in the Daily Drucker. To improve communications, work not on the utterer, but on the recipient. Well, what does that mean? To improve communications, work on the utterer. Who's the utterer in communications? Who's the utterer? Well, let me go further. Rather than the recipient. It is the recipient who communicates. Unless there is someone who hears, there's no communication. you've got to put it in terms that I can understand. Which means you have to know something about my level of education, my culture, right? So communication is extremely taxing. But communications is kind of perception. I perceive, I get it. I know what you're talking about, right? It's not just words, right? And so you see, in order for this to take place, this has implications for the design of the MBO process. So you see, the MBO is actually setting it in mind before anybody. Oh, okay. A key aspect of MBO is upward communications. So if MBO works properly, the individual acquires freedom within the rules. You are free to pursue your goals and objectives so long as you stay within what you propose. You go ahead and work as you wish, that's freedom, yet make sure you meet these objectives. That's self-control. That's responsibility. So we see that MBO and self-control is more than a business tool. It's a tool for the functioning society. The superior then reviews all objectives and negotiates agreement with each manager while seeking to integrate the objectives of each subordinate. The superior seeks to gain acceptance and commitment. You see, if you get my acceptance and my acceptance to what I have proposed and what the boss has negotiated, and free commitment, then I am highly motivated to achieve it because I had something to do with formulating the objective. If the superior is successful, and the process of communication has been effective because it comes from the bottom up. Okay, the communication participator will encourage subordinates to internalize objectives as his or her own, to freely take on, and this is the key, individual responsibility. So we move from proposing what we think we would like to do to help meet our superior's objectives to a negotiated position whereby I become committed to doing what we've negotiated, and I've been part of the participation process. Now, get it done. Get it done. We agree, and then we take responsibility. But we're involved in the process. Okay? Now, this is really a powerful. True freedom requires responsibility. Do you see, within MBO, there is freedom within responsibility. Yes? Freedom, but within responsibility. We're not free to do whatever we want. We're free so long as we pursue our agreed upon goals and objectives in a responsible way. Okay, so that is the idea. Now, this is the definition of responsibility that doesn't occur in any of Drucker's books. It is in the Daily Drucker. I'll tell you, MBO comes from way back in the 1920s and 30s, where he is interested in this idea of the functioning society, and yet it ends up as a so-called managerial technique. Okay, the connection between MBO and the creation. This is the connection between MBO and the creation of a functioning society. A functioning society requires performing organizations, which in turn requires responsible individuals. And this is the kind of responsibility that must be pursued by members of organizations if the society is to function at a high level of performance. But unless there is security that government provides, right, in a nation, you can't do this, can you? Do you see that? Do you see the need for that? There has to be some stability in the society in order for this to begin to work in its institution. That you have some kind of stability. And without that kind of societal stability, for a fairly long period of time, this cannot develop. So the whole Drucker system of functioning organizations is contingent first upon political stability, right, and the desire to create institutions that function at a high level. Right? That's it. And if you were here, and I know you were here, early on when we started, you saw that one of the 2 or 3 things I emphasized in leadership is this idea of continuity and change. To maintain stability and to create a functioning sense. The reason Peter Drucker tried to identify the future that's already happened, get ready to change. And get ready to change in a way that's not destabilizing. Right? That doesn't knock you off as a person or as an organization. Right? Does that make sense? I mean, there must be an enormous amount there is change going on here in all organizations of this society, right? It's scary. And yet, all the society's institutions have to be able to change, but the executives must go out of their way to seek to maintain continuity with the past. Because change is very disruptive, and it cannot be unlimited and unnecessary change. So organizations and societies have to provide a mechanism to allow change to take place with a minimum of disruption. One of the most unfortunate things that I have witnessed as a result of going through Drucker's book, in 1978, 77, he wrote a book called The Unforeseen Revolution. The title was later changed to The Pension Fund Revolution, where he talked about how pension funds in developed countries were going to be were going to control the assets of society. No longer would it be shareholders. The shareholders would be the workers themselves, okay? Which is a revolutionary kind of development for a capitalist system when you think of it. The capitalists are the workers. Huh? A lot of philosophical debates could take place there. Okay, but in the middle of that, he also talked about how the population in the West was graying, and it was going to get older. He just projected the demographics, and this baby boom that took place after World War II, where all the men came back and started to have babies, was going to pop in 2010 or so, and everybody was going to be retired, and the Social Security system would go bankrupt, would be unable to fund it. Therefore, the country should get prepared. It should get prepared to, because people are living longer and knowledge workers can work longer, it should be prepared to extend the retirement age. So Drucker was saying, get ready. This is in the 70s. Get ready. This is coming. This is coming. This is coming. And nothing was done. There's been an expansion of individual retirement accounts and all that. I can't say nothing. But not nearly enough to take care of the retirement, the baby boom population. In 2010, there's going to be like one worker supporting each retiree.
1, 2, 3.
One to one or something like that. It used to be 100 to 1, 100 workers supporting one retiree when it's now it's going to be down to 2 to 1 or something like that. Some horrible number. And so the system is going to be bankrupt. Why? Because there was not the political courage to change. But Drucker did what a social ecologist is supposed to do. Watch out. It's coming. Look for it. Begin to operate. Begin to change in order to maintain continuity. Do it slowly. We didn't take his advice. Well, Drucker in 1989 wrote this book, The New Realities. It was published in 1989, but Drucker had given a series of lectures on those chapters at Claremont. Chapter 4 is called When the Russian Empire is Gone. What he predicted based upon his knowledge of history, was that perestroika would not work. That you could not hold, Stalin held it together by force. You cannot hold it together by economic interest. There's no example in history of holding together different ethnic groups and so on over 11 time zones by economic interest alone. Henry Kissinger, our Secretary of State, read that and said, Drucker's nuts. Well, in 1991, perestroika collapsed. All these nations became independent. And I remember Peter, that night that all happened, Poland, it just like it happened in a matter of weeks. Coming up the stairs to Dean's house, we were at a party, and I didn't even know about Chapter 4 in the New Realities. And I said, what do you think of all this, Peter? And he had a big smile on his face because he had predicted it. He said, I knew it was going to happen. I just didn't know it was going to happen this fast. That's the social ecologist knows the direction, not necessarily the timing, right? The precise timing. And I'll tell you, you can go through his works, and time again, he's seeing things in the little nut that are going to become big boulders. And the reason he got into that is because the social ecologist attempts to persuade decision makers to prepare themselves and their people for change and to take action to create change from new opportunities. Change is not bad if you embrace it and try to become a change leader. The most effective way to manage change successfully is to create it. I can't tell you how many times I have seen this sentence quoted. The most effective way to manage change is not to become a victim of it, not to react to it, but to get out in front of it. Because the idea is to maintain, is to maintain what Drucker would call dynamic equilibrium.